you being the nonprofit who's already speaking on behalf of those marginalized communities, right? Say, I have what you need and you can't tell me no. You can't tell me no. So, how much money you want to lose? You want to lose millions of dollars or billions of dollars? Right? And so you have that ability as a nonprofit to be able to join forces with these organizations, educate them, right? And in turn, for an exchange, of indirect costs to cover overhead or to cover whatever it is. So that way you can be able to have functional programming for your community.
Over 50% of Black Americans are unmarried, and only 2% of Black families in America have a net worth over $1 million.
We are on our journey to not only join that 2%, but grow that 2%.
Facts. I'm Devon Travell, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, with my beautiful co-host.
I'm Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd. You can go to our website at them4show.com, our Instagram at them4show, and our YouTube channel at Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making.
And welcome to the M4 Show. Bring them out. Welcome back to the M4 Show, Melanated Married Millionaires in the Making. I'm your host, Devon Travell, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game. And y'all know, as usual, I have with me the beautiful, the talented, the dancing, the smiling, the gumbo cooking queen herself. Listen, we're about to eat some gumbo later. Please introduce yourself.
As long as it's good, yes. What's up, everybody? My name is Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd. And yes, I was going to go ahead. I was going to make the roux before this, and then I looked at the clock. I said, "Ooh, I've got 45 minutes.
Don't rush the gumbo.
I can't rush the process. We're gonna take it slow after the podcast.
Take it slow. Make sure you take each step intentionally. Add each ingredient that it needs and give it the time that the roux, that the stew, that the gumbo needs to complete that process. All right.
And keep my fingers while
at it. Yeah, she's been cutting off nails. Yeah, can't rush it. But what I want to do is I want to introduce our guest. Right. We got Shakira Releford from the Nonprofit Unplugged organization. She focuses on helping people scale their business, specifically nonprofit businesses, through professional development, programming, grant writing, and securing funding. So if you have a nonprofit, if you've ever thought about creating a nonprofit, you're just like, how am I going to get this money? How am I going to really fund this dream? I'm gonna need you to go ahead and get that pen and pad out. Facts. Get your Apple Notes out, your Google Notes, whatever you do as a scholar to take notes and make sure that you can take action on what she's about to drop. But please help welcome Shakira from Nonprofit Unplugged to the stage.
Hey!
There you go. How you doing this? It's evening for you, huh?
It's evening for me, yes. But I'm good.
Good, beautiful. So I know that you're from Chi-Town. Right, so we're big foodies. What is like your top restaurant? It can be top 2 in the Chicago area.
It's funny because it's my daughter. I would say my favorite restaurant doesn't exist anymore. It used to be. I know. I really am big into a lot of the mom and pop hole in the wall places. When people think Chicago, they think like Giordano's or the Grand Lux, or all of the fancy places. The wait's too long, parking is terrible. I like those mom and pop shops right off in the cuff. And so there used to be a restaurant that we went to. We, as in my grandmother and I, went to religiously, like before and after church. It was called Theodore's, and it was like right off 95th Street. So I miss that place. Every time I think about that place or any place like it, right, it just reminds me of family, of home. So that place does not, trump anything else. Like that is the place. Or I should say nothing else trumps that place.
Love it. You said before and after church. Y'all getting those tour-a-days.
Yeah, the tour-a-days, yes. Yes.
I love it. And I see, family is a big part of your life. And I see the beautiful seed right there. Do you mind just talking a little bit about just the importance of family, but also the importance of the family understanding what you do as a professional, right? Like how do they get inspired? How do they learn about nonprofits, or how they learn about just professionalism by being able to engage with their mom?
She is definitely, I wouldn't say she's a daddy's girl, but she's a mama's like shadow, right? And so her name is Sophia, Miss Sophia. She's 5. She'll be 6 in August.
Mhm.
And she is trying to understand the dynamic that mommy's meetings are not playtime. Like, they're not play meetings. So she's like, whoa. And so she'll try to reenact her own meeting. And I don't stop this because I'm just a big proponent of eliminating trauma, as you know, and so let's
Yeah.
not eliminate, trauma, especially in the Black community. But that's another episode
A
for that.
whole nother
A
podcast.
whole nother podcast for that. So anyway, I allow these opportunities and these moments, right, for her to process her feelings, her emotions, those sensory inputs and things like that. And as much as I probably don't pay attention to what she's soaking in, she definitely is taking in a lot. You know what I mean? I meet with people all the time. I try to do when she's in school, but now that we're on summer break, she definitely will sit, listen. She'll pretend to take notes, stuff like that. It's the cutest thing. So I told her, like, if you stay in here, you have to be very quiet, and so she's struggling because she's like, I want to be in the camera. She is not camera shy. Like,
At
so
all. At all.
she'll be here hanging out if that's okay. But for the most part, these are things that, and I'm sure we're going to get to this in a minute, but talking about nonprofits in general, this is, nonprofits is your, I'm gonna say fast ticket, right, to legacy building and wealth building and strategy management, right? And it's like, man, it's either it's funny because I was telling a friend of mine, I said, I know now, knowing what I know now, when I have another kid, I'm not going to immediately jump into getting those, cash value life insurance policies. I'll just start another nonprofit. Like it's one of those things where, I would say our constituents do it all the time. And it's a reason for that. It worked. I mean, it's really, really good legacy and wealth building. And what good is it to build all this wealth and have this legacy for the next 7 generations if the generation can't understand or learn from it? That makes sense?
Oh yeah.
Or appreciate.
So first off, you're dropping gems, and we're just in the intro, right? We're dropping gems. But I also have to say my little sister's name is also Sophia, and she just graduated from high school. So shout out to all the Sophias.
All the Sophias in the world.
Yes. We love to see it. But I want to fast forward a little bit because you're already bringing up some good stuff that we wanted to talk about later, but on using nonprofits as a potential strategy and leverage for creating family legacy, creating family wealth. Can you just dive deeper into a nonprofit versus a family foundation, right? If there's a difference. But and then, like, what is the play? What is the strategy for how a family, the Walker legacy, the Releford legacy, can use a nonprofit structure to now build wealth?
That's like 3 edge questions in one, right? So in a sense, so let me answer this like this. So the difference between a traditional nonprofit entity and a family foundation is in regard to the nonprofit is going to be your public charity, essentially, whereas the family foundation is going to fall in line with a trust. Okay. For example, that's the more common ones, right? Not always, but that's usually what it looks like. You know what I mean? Like Rockefellers or even with Hershey, Milton Hershey, things like that. Those are different trusts. And here's the thing. I think it's important to know that nonprofit money, nonprofit revenue or surplus is money that can't be touched, that can't be tampered with. The government technically can't give it and the government can't take it away. And so family foundations are in a more unique position because, again, it's like building up you're building a trust, if you will, right? And you're saying this trust is going to be in lieu of so and so, Susie Q, in lieu of Susie Q, but the money that we raise for that is going to be in support of other people, other nonprofits or other organizations and missions that align with our mission and goal for X Trust. That makes sense a little bit.
A little bit.
Whereas public charity is going to be centered really around how can we, give some relief to the poor or help people in our neighborhood, or they turning into like a ministry in a sense, and so, or is ministry led. And so nonprofits, the traditional side of nonprofits, as long as they have a 501c3 tax exempt status, they qualify for grant funding and government contracts. Not saying family foundations don't qualify for government contracts, but they don't get access to any of that free money that's for the government.
So typically a family foundation isn't necessarily 501c3 tax exempt. It's a different class.
It's a different class. Yep. And all of the profit that comes out of a family foundation is internal money. If that makes sense, corporate sponsorships, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is somebody's first time hearing 501c3, which is usually the most popular tax exempt status. But can you just explain high level what 501c3 means?
So 501c3 is just basically how the IRS. So here,
rewind.
When you decide I want to start a nonprofit, right? You're gonna file your articles of incorporation with whatever state you're in, or your non-government entity with whatever country you live in. Okay, you'll establish that first. That's so the nonprofit on the state level says congratulations, you're a nonprofit for the state of whatever state you're in, or for the country of whatever country you're in, right? Here's where it differs for, like international versus US. I'm gonna focus on US for the sake of this topic. And so once you apply and have your nonprofit established with the state, you then have the option to get a federal tax exemption. Just because you have it with the state, it doesn't automatically transfer over to the federal side with the IRS. So then you decide, okay, well, I need to be covered with the IRS, right? So I'm not having to pay taxes on this money that I'm making. You know what I mean? If you are a church, by default, you don't have to worry about it. You automatically get those perks for being a church and being a ministry, essentially, right? But if you're not, if you're a nonprofit like the one I have right now, where you're building a micro school or your tutoring program or things like that, we don't get those special privileges. So we have to then go to the IRS and tell the IRS we want a federal exemption, so we won't have to pay taxes on any of the money that we bring in. So the 501c3 is just a tax code that the IRS categorizes you under when you file your taxes. And that gives you the liberty to be able to be exempt from paying taxes. And you actually access public dollars. So that's grants, contracts, right? Any type of funding from other nonprofits that are private or foundation based. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility to be able to diversify your funding.
So it is very clear that you are extremely knowledgeable in the realm of nonprofit space. You know what you're talking about. So I'm wondering, how long have you been in this nonprofit space, and what actually prompted you to start the Nonprofit Unplugged?
You know what? I've been in total, I've been in the nonprofit space since, how old am I?
Do some math.
Do some math. Hang tight. Hold your mute. Get the calculator out.
22 now.
Right. 13 years. Okay. So since I was 21, and it started when I went to college. I needed a job, a work study job. So I got hired at this nonprofit doing data and being a data analyst. And it was for a substance abuse halfway house type of thing. I fell in love with the job. I loved that job. But that's not something I really wanted to do. Does that make, that wasn't anything that I was like, I learned a lot working there, but nothing clicked for real until probably 5 years ago. like, because I didn't have any intentions on staying in that place. Over time, I graduated, got married, had a kid, went back and got my master's degree, moved around the Midwest. We settled in Iowa about 5 years ago, because my daughter was 1. And I got hired at this nonprofit organization, and I started making the most money I've ever made in my entire life.
Wow.
My entire life. Even now. Like, I never made that much money in my entire life. And I was the only person of color in that organization making that money for these white people. So I was just like, there's something to this. And I need to tap into what this really means. Like, what does the structure means kind of deal. I was in the position of becoming an interim executive director. So it was crunch time. I had to learn all that I could as quickly as I could. Based on that, I started my own nonprofit. And I started soliciting for donations and, support and yada, yada. And no one cared about what the organization was about. And no one cared. Yeah. They just wanted to know, how did I do it? And how did I get the results so fast? And I was just like, I don't know. So instead of answering everyone's Facebook messages and Twitter messages all day long, I said, I'm going to start a podcast, and we're just going to, because I didn't realize how, and I'm not saying anyone's ignorant per se, but I didn't realize how much false information is out there about the nonprofit space, right? Or misconceptions, that it was like, you know what? So I started the podcast, Nonprofit Unplugged, just so it could be a myth buster, right? This is the myth buster on this, on nonprofits. Then it turned into, and it did really, really well. It grew really fast. Then it turned into, so how do we get the dollars? Now that we've done all of the background stuff, that's nothing. How do we get the funding? And I was already doing grant writing and grant review. I'm a federal grant reviewer now. And I was like, oh, well, you got to know what's inside the funder's head. Like, you got to write according to what they want they want to see and what they want to hear. And they're like, how do you do that? And I was like, okay, I'll create a course on how to do that. And so it's kind of been organic throughout these years. I didn't intend to fall into this, but God clearly has other plans.
Yeah,
as God always does, right?
And it's interesting. You've already, I think, busted one of the myths that we hear a lot, or at least that I had heard a lot about around nonprofits, where it's like, there's not a lot of money in nonprofits. Like, you don't really make a lot of money. So it's so interesting to hear that you said, like, you made the most money you ever had
6 figures
working for a nonprofit.
Yes, 6 figures. And it's easy. So here's the thing. When you do hear about stuff like that, it's automatically organizations that have figured out how to scam the system, cheat their way through, not the not so nice things. And so another misconception when I'm working with clients is that a lot of people go into this with their dream. They take their dream and say, I have this dream, like Martin Luther King, I have a dream. And they're like, this is what I want to do. And they set themselves up to miss a lot of good doors that God opens that's designed for him. Like, as a nonprofit, you just automatically have the keys to the gate. Like, there's so many things you can do and unlock and tap into, and everyone they get scared and they're like, oh, I can't do that because I'm a nonprofit. So what they do is they'll start their nonprofit and they host, or they have a lot of free programs, free products and services, and they don't think that their nonprofit is still a business. It's still a business. Like, nonprofit is just a style, right? It's like an LLC is a type of business. S Corp is a type of business. Nonprofit is the same thing. It's just a different type of entity, but it's no less than someone who's hustling on Etsy. Does that make sense? Like, it's no less than that traditional LLC. The IRS requires you to have those same rules, right? It's just that you're not going to be taxed on it versus that LLC is going to be triple, quadruple taxed.
When you talk about nonprofits having the keys to the gate, can we talk about maybe a few of those gates?
Oh, right? Yeah. So here's the thing. So a few of those gates. Oh, this is good. As a nonprofit, right? As a nonprofit, you have the ability, right, to legally ask for money and tap into other people's pockets without, I mean, they have the choice to say no, but it's not illegal. You can never really, I would say it's hard to scam people. I mean, if you spend research trying to scam folks in the nonprofit space, then you just intending to do that. But you legally have the right to ask people to donate, ask people to give you money to fund your business. You know what I mean? Like, you could do that. Whereas the LLC, you can't. They either may have to buy a product, a service, or tap into a coaching program. You know what I mean? But as a nonprofit, by default, you ain't got to do nothing with the nonprofit. A lot of people do this all the time, which is why so many people have 1,000 nonprofits, right? You can have the nonprofit, just have it active, keep it maintained, active, and you can just ask for people to donate into it. Just donate into it so you can unlock other people's dollars and other people's pockets, right? As a nonprofit, you by default have the ability to connect with corporate America on a different level. And really, you know how we as Black people, we want our reparations, and rightfully so. We rightfully deserve those things,
like our
right?
reparations.
We want our right, and put the cherry on top and then some, right? A nonprofit allows you to do that.
Oh, talk to me about this.
Because, well, here's the thing. When you think about a lot of these corporate companies, right? These predominantly white-led companies and organizations and things like that. Right now, they got the heat on them. I mean, they are clearly in the fire, right? You're not doing anything diversity, equity, inclusive, and you're pretty much going to be stung. Right. So to keep their business intact, right? They as the white corporate America decide, well, we got to connect, right, with some DEI initiatives, right? You being the nonprofit who's already speaking on behalf of those marginalized communities, right? Say, I have what you need, and you can't tell me no. You can't tell me no. So, how much money you want to lose? You want to lose millions of dollars or billions of dollars? Right. And so you have that ability as a nonprofit to be able to join forces with these organizations, educate them, right? And in turn, for an exchange, of indirect costs to cover overhead or to cover whatever it is. So that way you can be able to have functional programming for your community, wherever that may be.
Ooh, this is getting spicy, y'all. Okay, so yeah, little sprinkle a little spice. If you're just joining us, we got Shakira from Nonprofit Unplugged. Make sure y'all tap in. If you have any questions, you can put it inside the comments. But we've been talking about the power of the nonprofit and how having your own nonprofit can not only help your family create wealth, help your family create that lasting legacy, but also it just unlocks different gates and you're able to engage with the economy differently as a nonprofit. But there's some steps that you need to do before that, right? There's some steps that you probably want to do. You want to line up before you start applying for grants, before you start knocking on doors and asking for funding. So before we start talking that bag talk, which I know we're about to get to, what are some very just like key beginner steps that nonprofits need to make sure they take so that they're able to secure the bag?
Right. This is for all nonprofits, regardless of what type you have. It could be a church, it could be a sports league, it can be a trust fund for your kids, whatever, right? No matter the type, private and public foundations, no matter the type of nonprofit, all nonprofits need to know exactly what your mission is going to be. You need to know what you're going to do, who you intend to serve. Do not deviate from that. I know everything that glitters ain't gold. I get it. You're excited because, there's a, funding you might have heard about. There's plenty of grants in tech and your mission is homeless youth. No, so pick a mission and hone in on that. Know exactly what you're going to do, who you're going to target, and stick to that. Don't deviate. Okay. Number 2, write your vision down. Write the vision and make it plain, right? It's what the scriptures say. Write that vision out. Write it out for the next 3 years, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, right? Write it all out. Go get a drink of water, honey. So write that vision out. It's good because step 3, when you decide to go get a board, right, and decide who your board is, whether it be board of advisors, board of directors, whatever rights you want to have them have, everyone's on the same page and everyone knows what to do. Okay, so come up with your mission, come up with your vision, and start developing your board. Okay,
love it.
There it is. Very simple, y'all. Go get it.
Right, very simple. Do those things first, so then when it comes down to sit down and do paperwork, you're not guessing around on what you want the name to be, what you want the mission to be. You're not wasting any time, right? You can get your nonprofit start established and on the roll, on the scale, right, of influx within 30 days, 45 days at best. Okay, so it doesn't have to take years. You don't have to wait around on Paul from Florida to decide whether or not he want to be a board member. We ain't got time for that, because right now, whatever it is that you want to do, there's a sense of urgency there. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing it. You wouldn't feel led to do it if the urgency wasn't there. We can't sit back and be like, okay, God, I hear you talking, I hear your urgency, but I'm gonna just sit here and wait on you. No, right? Like, use that urgency as that gasoline to fuel you and keep you going, right? Once you decide those 3 things, get that in order, then go file your for your 501, for your articles of incorporation in your state. Okay, most states, well, I know East Coast is really expensive, so you're looking at like $500 a plus to do that, compared to the Midwest, which usually run anywhere from $80 to $300 depending on the state. And then West Coast and South, they are higher, but you're not having to pay a lot of extra stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so every state's different, right? Or every region of the US is going to be different. For the most part, go ahead and budget that out. File those articles of incorporation with your state, right? Take a day off. Once that's done, take a day off, because you're going to probably need to wait a week or 2 or 3, depending on how long the latency is for the state. Once you hear back, okay? Once you finally get the green light, your state is like, yep, you're a nonprofit, you're good to go. Okay. You need to read. You need to read. This is why a lot of people, nonprofits, get in trouble. They don't read. So they get their articles of incorporation, read what it says in there. Okay. It's going to walk you through what you can and can't do, right? Go get your EIN. Okay. Yes, thank you. Your EIN number, right? Get that. That's free on the IRS website. Don't pay nobody to do that. Quit being lazy. Go to irs.gov. Go ahead, fill it, put in the information. You get the EIN number right away. Next thing you do is read that paper that tells you what if you qualify for a 501c3 tax exemption. They give you the approval to apply. They tell you what tax forms you need to submit every year. And just because you're a nonprofit, and this is where a lot of nonprofits get in trouble and they end up getting revoked or shut down, is because they don't file taxes. Nonprofit don't mean you don't file taxes. Nonprofits means you're not being taxed on that money you bring in. Okay. That's money that the government they know they can't touch it. They know they can't touch it. That's why
want to see it, though.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know what
they want
money.
to see, right? They want to see, right, that you are doing what you said you do, right? A lot of times, I know every nonprofit I worked for, they've always came in and audited. Surprise, surprise, right? But otherwise, don't be scared of that either. Okay. They do routine audits all the time, unless you just raise a red flag to them, then they're coming after you a couple times a year. But otherwise, you know what I mean? Be in compliance. Read what those forms say. They tell you, they answer a whole lot of questions that you might not realize you may have had. Okay. Once that's done, move on to sam.gov, sam.gov. Okay. sam.gov. Register your nonprofit there. And so that you can get a UEI number. That number is going to be almost like your birthmark, right? For any type of grant, contract, your organization in general, right? The government loves numbers, right?
Yeah.
So they love numbers. So you'll get that number, but you can, and even if you have an LLC and you're listening, do the same thing. Go on, register with sam.gov, get a UEI number, because you can also, right, get partnered with a nonprofit or get partnered with a corporation and get grant funding that way as an LLC. That's another story. Anyway.
I better take notes. I'm taking my notes.
Right. And so get that UEI number. And then what will happen is your paperwork in about a week, it gets sent over to the Department of Defense and Homeland Security. Whee! And then you get a cage number, right? So this is how the government keeps track of you. Okay. So many different things. Don't be overwhelmed by the steps. All these steps take 15 minutes to do from start to finish. And the longest part is just waiting for the approval. Again, that's anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks at best. Okay. So again, it won't take long at all. Okay. After you get that sam.gov, get your business bank account right away. Even if you ain't got no money yet, go get the account. Okay. Most banks and credit unions, right, are going to require you, in order for you to open up the account, you're going to need to have had your first board meeting. Okay. So they're going to need those meeting minutes. They're also going to need a copy of your bylaws saying that you and the board have agreed to bank at this location, signed on this date kind of deal. Okay. Sometimes they do ask for a copy of your driver's license or your articles of incorporation. Send them both. You never know. Okay. But take the time to set up that business bank account. Okay. Once those things are in place, you can move on to the next phase. Right. And the next phase really is start thinking about your strategic plans, which you should have done if you've done the vision, right? That should be done already. But start thinking about your partnerships. Who do you want to get connected with? You have to, just like any other business, start some lead gen, get some lead generation going. Talk to people about your organization. Don't just post on Instagram once and expect everybody going to see that. No, you know how many billions of people are in this world? Maybe 20 people have seen it, right? That don't mean you stop talking about your organization and your mission, right? It's okay to go live every now and then, twice a week or whatever. Do a webinar with somebody. Do informationals. I used to host time at the library, right? Because it was like free if you had a public library card. And I rented out, and this was during COVID too, rented out time at the library. And I would just ask the library if they wouldn't mind advertising. I'm just going to do like a seminar for an hour talking about a hot topic or pain point within my nonprofit or within the mission that we're serving, right? The library will advertise for me, and it'll be a swarm of people there, right? And a lot of times it's other executive directors, organizational leaders, things like that. And they are interested. They're curious. They want to know who you are, what you're doing in this community, why you're serving, so they can be on board. They ain't trying to compete with you. They are literally just trying to learn you, get to know you. That's where the magic happens, because you'll never know. You'll run into that one person that'll come and say, you know what, I'm working on a grant. I want to write you in it. That happens all the time. And there you go. You just got your first grant without ever having to write it, without ever having to, look for it on your own. But you got to put yourself in position. And so if you plant the seed, God will water it, but you got to actually go put that seed in the ground.
Oh, yeah. I think sometimes people are way more important than money, and people focus on the money so often that they have their eyes closed and shut down to who the people are that could be connecting them to potential resources, to the money, to other opportunities, skills, all that. So love that masterclass, right? It was mission, vision, board of people, board of directors. Get your EIN number. Go to sam.gov, get your UEIN.
UEI number. Yep.
UEI number. There you go.
Yep.
Start your bank account, right? So again, listen back through this a couple times. If you're thinking about starting your nonprofit, if you're hoping for some mentorship, listen through this a couple times because Shakira just broke down literally the first 7 steps that you should be taking.
No excuses. If you have been wanting to do this and there's not a lot of resources out there telling you what you need to do, how you need to do it, you just found it, right? And like you said, go back through, write it down. You've got your tangible steps that you can go do now and make your nonprofit a reality. I wanted to follow up on the conversation of grants. We've been throwing that word out a couple of times, and I want to really get clear on like what is a government grant and how do nonprofits go and find them? Like we're talking about funding, like, hey, I've got all my steps together, right? I've got 1 through 7, I've got established. Now I'm ready to go find funding. How can a nonprofit go and secure some of those government grants?
Well, the biggest thing is, number one, is to make sure that you're grant ready. Now, all the steps I just listed, this is phase 1. That's your grant readiness steps. See, we got a dance for joy back here. Yeah, right. Right. So everything that you've just done is what gets you grant ready. A lot of people skip this step. I don't know why, but they do. They just skip. They think that's not important, or they'll put it off and wait till later because they just want to get to the money, right? It is a known fact. It may not, but a typical mythbuster, right? It is a known fact that an organization is not ready to receive grant funding in their first 3 to 5 years of being established.
Wow, that's a fact, huh?
It's a fact. No organization is grant ready in its entirety or ready to start bringing in that money or the big dogs until 3 to 5 years in. As a federal grant reviewer, here's what we think. Right, here's what the funders are thinking.
Listen in, y'all.
Right. Zoom in, turn the volume up.
If you are 18 years old, for example, and you get your first credit card, and you spend that credit card up, and you blow through it, and you went from having, a cute little 700 score down to a 439, right? Is right.
Pause.
That's right. In a sense, if you went from having very high credit, high credibility, things like that, and you drop and you damage your credit real bad. And I'm not saying not at just 18, but over the years, right? So 18 to 28, you spent the last 10 years ruining your credit, and you want to go buy a Tesla, and your credit is at 439. You really think Tesla gonna look at you and say, yeah, I'm going to let you finance this $90,000 car? No. Grants funders kind of have the same philosophy. They treat you like credit. Okay. The less experience you have with getting funding and managing funds, the less likely you are to get any money from them. They don't see you as credit worthy yet. They don't see you as grant worthy, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you got to do to build that credit? What you got to do to get back on the straight and narrow? Okay. Number one thing that everyone does not want to do, because people do not like to talk to other people, right? But build collaborative partnerships. You have to build partnerships with big names like the Goodwill, the Salvation Army, the Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, all of these other nonprofit organizations that has the billions of dollars. Go make partners, kumbaya with them. Go break bread, have some wine. We gonna have Netflix and chill as often as you want, right? I'm not saying to go kiss butt, but build a solid foundation with some of these organizations that are already where you want to go, right? Because you're only gonna get there 10x faster by doing that. Okay, which means you got to open up your mouth and talk to people. You got to communicate what your mission is and be serious about it. Here's the thing. A lot of nonprofits spend so much time coming up with activities that they don't actually have any programs. Y'all, I love you. I love everybody dearly out there. And y'all already know who these organizations are if it ain't you. Just don't. A backpack drive is not a program. Okay, a car wash is not a program. A book drive is not a program. Those are activities that you do to raise money. A program is like an after school you
Program.
know, program, okay, tutoring, program, halfway house, program, right? Counseling services, programs, okay? Funders only fund programs. They do not fund activities. They do not fund for you to start getting earned income, right? They don't pay, you're not going to get grant money to pay your bills and pay you a salary. You write your salary in that budget, yes, but you don't. It's very rarely will you find a grant that's just going to cover those what they call indirect costs, right? Those operational costs. That's the responsibility of the board. Okay, here's another myth buster. Okay, your board is actually financially responsible for 50% of the organization's budget.
Wow.
The board is responsible for the fundraising. The board is responsible for doing all of that labor-intensive stuff that you as the founder or executive director should not be doing, right? That's not your job. That's their job. Okay, so here's another, side note, right? Know your role. Okay, it is okay to pay someone. You have to invest and get that board governance training and I do a lot of executive directors training, right? Because a lot of people spend so much time being the executive director, the founder, the CEO, the CFO, all the board members, and the client too. They spend a lot of time trying to be a one-man band. This is not Bozo Super Sunday show. This is a real life business. This is a real life program mission, and you have to take it as seriously as such. You're not a clown. You're not performing. You can't do the performing acts all day. You will burn out, and your nonprofit will tank before you even get started.
Yeah.
Right. So back on track. So go ahead, establish those partnerships. You almost have to. You ain't gonna go far funding wise if you don't. Okay. Once you hit that 3-year mark, 5-year mark, don't go for big dollars. Go for the goals that you can achieve. So apply for those in-kind grants, apply for those micro grants. $1,000 may sound small, but when 20 of those $1,000 micro grants, you just got 20 grand, It builds. Then as you manage, once you win 1 or 2 grants, manage it for a year. Do not try to apply for any more grants just yet. Manage it for a year. Like credit. Every single time you put an application into something, you get those derogatory marks on your credit. Same thing. It's almost like you just spend time like applying. Manage the money you have first. Make sure the money you have works for you, works for your organization. You got enough to cover staff. You got enough to pay your expenses. You know what I mean? That don't mean you stop raising money. Because if you're not able to access grants for real before your 3-year mark of being established, how else you going to get money? You got to fundraise. That's where the activities come in. Raise money through those activities, right? You can become a sub-recipient of grant funding, but that's only when you build a partnership with someone who's already getting grant funding often, and they write you into their grant, or they are willing to share the wealth with you, right? But you got to be able to manage your money, manage it responsibly.
So,
go ahead.
I was possibly silly question, but we talked about the analogy of like building credit or building that reputation for your nonprofit. When you're applying for these grants, you get the funds, you use the funds. Is there a public facing kind of like score or reporting process to where it's like, oh yes, Devon, Sinclair, Shakira, they got this $1,000, this $5,000. They said they were going to do X, Y, and Z. They got the money and they did this. Their score or their reputation now reflects it by this report. Is that exists?
There's something that does exist. Yeah, it does. It's mainly through like GuideStar is the most popular one. There's a couple other different management tools, right? A lot of that data is pulled from like sam.gov or grants.gov, or if it's like a private foundation, the private foundation have to report those things annually. So these databases do have a comprehensive history on you, and they do give you like a score, right, on how credit worthy or how grant worthy you are. Right. And don't take that score to heart, or don't take that score as as good as gold. But it's just something that does exist, and some funders, especially private funders, they do take that into consideration. Federal funders don't necessarily. What federal funders like is that, to me, applying for a grant with the federal government is way easier than a private foundation. Federal funders tell you exactly what they want. There is no gray. It's all black, all white. That there is no gray, right? They tell you exactly what to say. They tell you exactly how to say it, how to format it, right? It makes it really easy for you to just, if you follow the directions of their rubric, I mean, your chances of getting funded is like way high, right? They love to see partnerships. So as many partners as you can. Get 10 partners, y'all apply for this money. They want to see that you are saying or about your business, right? You are about your father's business, essentially, right? And so a lot of people they think it's impossible because they don't want to read a 50-page document telling them how to actually win the money. But that's my job. My job as a grant writer is to sift through all that and make it as streamlined and easy as possible, right? So that you don't have to stress yourself out. You know what I mean? Trying to figure it out. But a lot of people, again, it's overwhelming and it feels almost defeating. And they're like, I can't do this. I can't do this, And so grant funding is accessing, and this goes for government contracts too, but it's all in strategy. You have to have a plan going in. And even with all my clients, I make them do a fund development plan. Okay. Grants need to be on the bottom of the totem pole. Okay. Peer-to-peer fundraising, any type of fundraising at this point need to be at the top. Paid services need to be up there too. Grants are at the bottom. Grants are never guaranteed. That's why they're never guaranteed. You can apply for a grant now in June and you ain't going to hear back from them till probably October, and so it's a lengthy process. But the positive side of things is that you don't have to pay that money back.
Right.
Unless you misuse it, and then you're in trouble. But otherwise, you don't have to pay that money back. The money, that money is set aside from tax dollars. We taxpayers pay into these programs being available to nonprofits so they can actually make the world go around.
Yep.
So what I'm hearing, again, if we're talking about like you're just wanting to start, we've kind of outlined the first 7 steps. It sounds like accessing grant funding is not something you necessarily need to be worried about within your first couple years.
Right.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you need to be more focused on how are you going to raise money as an organization, right?
Yes.
Peer-to-peer within your board, right? Fundraising activities, services you're going to offer. How are you going to raise money? And doing that for a couple of years, right? Really focusing on that will then open the doors and open the opportunities for you to be able to access the more, the bigger dollars with the grants and the contracts and things like that.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, with that, you can get government contracts right away. Like, you don't have to wait that 3-year mark to get government contracts if you know where to look. Now, sam.gov is where all the government contracts are held, right? Grants.gov is where all grants are held, but the database is very convoluted. Okay, so I always recommend doing another grant database, like Grants Watch as one I use personally. Foundation Directory is free if you can access it at the public library. They all have it. It's free. Okay. Every state has a procurement specialist in their state that does all this work for you. Dun, dun, dun. So, go to your state procurement, website, or you can even find, let's say if you I live in Indiana right now. So I will put in Indiana procurement bid opportunities into Google, and it'll pull up all of the government contracts or bids, right, that are out there that I can apply for. Okay. Those bids usually are 3 to 5 pages long. They're not really extensive, right? They have this very similar format to a grant, but you're just applying, you're just selling yourself to that bidder so that way you can win that funding. So that on the lines of government contracts, I would say, even if you're an LLC, right, like that would be the way to go. As a nonprofit, especially if you are a nonprofit that's literally looking to build that social enterprise, and you're not a church, right? Then yeah, you might have to wait 3 years, but there's so much more you could be doing. You could have easily have made the money that you have wanted in that 1 to 2 years versus waiting for that grant to come through, and you may or may not get it.
So I know that there's some ratio on earned income from selling products, from selling services versus donations. Does that ratio change when it's a government contract, or is it still, and I don't know what the ratio is, but do you still need to be aware of how much money you're earning from contract versus how much money you're getting in from donations?
Yeah, you do. I would say so here's the thing with nonprofits, and this is why this goes back to the beginning of of us meeting up, right? And I mentioned like a lot of people use nonprofits as plan B, because all the money that you make in a nonprofit cannot go to anybody else. Like you can't. So if I had a general LLC and I'm selling candles, right? That money I make from selling candles come in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I can divvy it up for my expenses, but for the most part, I'm pocketing all that money. And I'm also getting taxed on all that money too. You know what I'm saying? But a nonprofit, all the money you bring in cannot go to my pockets. It has to stay in the nonprofit. Should anything happen to me, though, let's say, just because you have a nonprofit, or you start a nonprofit, it doesn't actually belong to you. The nonprofit doesn't belong to you at all. You could be the founder, and that's cute, but it don't belong to you. You know what I mean? It belongs directly to the government. The government, though, can't touch it. Can't touch this. Right. They also know they can't touch it, and so that's money. Think of it as a savings account that will that'll always give you dividends and never keep you in the hole. Like, if that makes sense. Like, it's one of those things where it's like you got more security in that than the stock market. Right? No. Totally invest, right? But for the most part, the money that you bring in from those nonprofits stay there, right? You then have to put yourself on payroll, and you are allowed, here's another key that you get to unlock, you are allowed to give yourself a reasonable salary, and the IRS won't argue with you. If you feel like you're deserving of X amount of dollars, like $120,000, well, your budget need to match, right? Or your budget need to be able to say, you can't bring in 120,000 donations and then write yourself off a salary of 100. Come on now. Like, yeah, you can write your salary. If you bring in $120,000, yes, your salary at 40 makes sense. You know what I'm saying? But, be reasonable, right? I would say don't shoot above 10%. Just don't, if you're going to pay yourself out of that, don't go more than 10%. Most times when you're writing your salary into a budget for grant funding, they don't let you go or exceed past 15%. Which means basically you working part-time for a higher amount. You know what I mean? So instead of making $35 an hour full-time, you are making $250 an hour part-time. You know what I mean? Like, the equivalent looks very, very different. But keep those things in mind. Depending on the funding you apply for, if it's a good quality funding, it'll tell you that. It'll kind of give you a heads up, like, hey, you can't exceed 15% here, or hey, you can't exceed so many hours there, etc. So this is definitely something to be mindful of. Just do it the legal way.
Do it the legal way. Do it the legal way, y'all. The M4 show, we're not trying to, no scammers, no haters, no nothing. The people that are trying to do amazing work, passionate work, like Shakira over there. So I want to do a quick commercial break. When we get back, we're going to do the Ask Declare segment. We're going to do a quick minute commercial break. And if you don't know, Shakira has been an amazing mom over there, triple tasking. We appreciate you being able to.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Of course, no, just the focus that you have is a superpower, because I would not be able to speak clearly at all. But I feel like if you're listening on the podcast, you have no idea what's happening. But we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and then we get back, we'll get into our Ask Declare segment. We'll see y'all in just a little bit. Look, we're gonna get right back into the amazing podcast. But if you didn't know, in 2017, we created Black Wall Street, the board game, because we thought more families needed to know about the history of Tulsa Black Wall Street. More families needed to know about the legacy of Black excellence left behind of Tulsa Black Wall Street, that we can own a Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Salon. We can have a Booker T. Washington High School. We can have an Uncle Steve's Barbecue. We can have a Renaissance man like Simon Berry, who had his own taxi service and bus service that got bought out by the city of Tulsa. We have brilliance in our DNA. We wanted to make sure that your family can play a game that teaches them about this brilliance. So we have Black Wall Street, the board game, right here. We had the first edition available in 2017. That got sold out. We're on the second edition right now, or you can get the beautiful masterpiece version of the game as well. It's up to you. Head to playblackwallstreet.com and get yourself Black Wall Street, the board game, to empower you, your family, and generations to come. Playblackwallstreet.com. Let's get back to the episode. All right, welcome back again. We got Shakira here from Nonprofit Unplugged. Let's get into our Ask Declare segment. Your opportunity to ask Sinclair or myself any question about business, health, or relationship.
Thanks. My daughter said, "What is the Black Wall Street game?"
That's a great question.
That is a good question. We're gonna let her ask that in a sense and say, like, tell us more. She's a Black history fanatic, by the way.
Come on, Sophia. Love Sophia. Welcome to the podcast. So Black Wall Street, Tulsa Black Wall Street, right? The most successful Black community in American history. We have the second edition of the board game right here. We took the history of Tulsa's Black Wall Street and we put it into a game. So as you're going around the board, Sophia, oh, we love the kisses. As you're going around the board, Sophia, you might land on Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Salon. You might land on Uncle Steve's Barbecue. You might land on Booker T. Washington High School. All these were real businesses during Tulsa Black Wall Street time. And Sophia, you're going to have the option of either using a business or owning a business, right? So you might land on Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Salon, Sophia, and it costs $25 to get your hair done, get your hair cut, or it costs $100 to now own Madam C.J. Walker Beauty Salon. Sophia, which one are you choosing?
Which one would you choose? Would you buy a business or work for the business?
Let's see what she says. Thinking about it.
I would buy a business.
You would buy a business.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, right? So the board game, again, we made it back in 2017. It's about that moment that Sophia had right there. That moment of, do I want to buy it? Do I want to work for it? Do I want to use it? And we're hoping that more and more folks from playing the game, from listening to the podcast, choose to buy, choose to own the business. So that's what the game is.
Awesome. Okay, so I've been dying to ask, like, how long have you guys been married, and what are some tips, right, that you would share with any couple in our position, right? Young Black couple, still married, thriving, right?
Yes.
And what are some things that I wouldn't say pitfalls, but I know this is like a 4-in-1 in 4, but like, what are some things that you would give to, let's say, Sophia, and if she was single or in this predicament, or you know what I mean, like she's not married yet but looking to get married, or she is married and looking to get out, right? Like, what would be some things that you two have learned along the way in your journey in marriage that you really, like, hands down, these will be the top 3, for example?
Really good. Queen, am I first or second?
You can go first.
Okay. So first, we've been dating for almost 12 years. Right, still actively dating. Did a little date last night. Talk about
A
what's up, girl. A little
drive-in.
drive-in date. But dating for 11 and a half years. Have been married for going on 4 years. Right, just this July is going to be our fourth anniversary. And I
What's your
would say,
anniversary date?
oh, 7
July
7.
7th.
Oh, mine's is the 11th.
July, it's
7-Eleven.
a beautiful month.
Yes.
Right? It's a beautiful
Yes.
So I would say, one pitfall that, particularly I fell into early is the thought that it was going to be a 50-50 partnership. I think that's what, I experienced, or I experienced growing up. Like, we have a 50-50 partnership. I pay these bills, you pay these bills, I do these tasks, you do these tasks. And it's very equal in a sense. But I think we learned pretty quickly in our marriage that that's not always the case, right? It's not always a equal thing. It's about what can you do to your best ability? What can I do to my best ability? And Sinclair gives this example all the time. It's a great example. She does most of the driving, right?
99%.
Probably, I don't know about 99 now.
92.
Come on.
Enough, right?
92. I can take that. But she does most of the driving. One, because she doesn't like my driving and I drive too slow. Number two, I'm able to use that driving time to do other things on the computer, on the phone, network, make phone calls. So me not driving brings more value than me driving in the relationship. And that's something that she, like, I never asked her to do that. It was something that eventually she slowly just started doing because it just made sense. So that's, I think, a pitfall that started early, but we found our groove, we found our solution. One recommendation that I would definitely, encourage folks to, if they're, single, if they're currently married and they're just trying to evaluate the situation, is find you a partner that is willing to support your dream for nothing in exchange. I think,
And I was dropping gems. Look at that.
yeah, you know,
Just-
this is what we do, both of us, both sides of the camera. But yeah,
Mhm.
find yourself a partner that's willing to support your dream for nothing in exchange. Sometimes, you'll find a partner who wants to support you, but they're really supporting you so that they can also get put on, right? Whether that's a marriage partner or that's a friend, they're like, oh yeah, let me help you do woo, 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 woo. I'm just gonna, put my logo on things. I'm just gonna put my Instagram and make sure you tag me in all the pictures. And it's like, bro, so are you doing this for me? Or are you doing this for you? Right? What's the realness here? And I feel like since 2018, right, we started Play Black Wall Street, but authentically it started as my own dream, my own vision that the queen helped me do. But she would be in the living room printing out the mail slips, putting it on the things. She would be helping with strategies. She would be going with me to tabling events, trying to sell board games, all the while just, hey, this is the king thing, I'm gonna uplift him, I'm gonna do what he says most of the time. Most of the time, to support the dream. And she was the first not full-time, but first employee officially to be paid for Play Black Wall Street. Quit her job, fully believed in the dream. And I
Yes.
feel like literally Play Black Wall Street wouldn't be what it is today. Black Wall Street, the board game, wouldn't be what it is today without the initial trust and investment of the queen. So yeah, of course. So yeah, I would just say, make sure that if you're rocking with somebody and you have a dream and you feel like they're not showing up for you, or if you do something for them, they do something for you, they're expecting something else in return, then I might reevaluate that situation.
Yeah. That was good. I want to just emphasize one of the points you made, the last one, which is like not expecting something in return. And I just want to emphasize that because I think in popular culture right now, especially with a lot of the female artists out there is a lot of like, I want my bills paid, I want my like all of these things done in return for love, for all of that. And although you want a partner who wants genuinely to support you and to love you and to give you things and just support you in general in life, it should not be a transactional relationship. And so, yeah, you really should find a partner that you want to support because you want to support them, because you want to see them succeed. You want to see their dreams succeed. You believe in it, and let the rest happen the way it happens, right? I'm very blessed to be an employee of Play Black Wall Street now. I did not help put these labels on the box thinking like, oh, I can't wait till I'm able to quit my job and work for this company. Like, that was never necessarily the goal.
Right.
That's where it's brought me.
Right.
So I just want to emphasize that. And then I would say really find those things that bring value to the relationship. Like you said, like, and things that are like your gifts, or the things that you are good at that maybe the other person, I don't want to say is not good at, but is maybe a little bit more effort, challenged. So like you said, things like driving, and he's not challenged, but it takes more effort for him. I've always been a driver. Like, I like driving. It's nothing for me. Whereas, like, I know if I'm in the passenger seat, I'm probably taking a nap. And so bedtime for us as a couple. Whereas if I'm driving, I know he's probably 99% of the time going to be on the laptop, like you said, emails, phone calls, whatever. And him working is furthering us as a unit, furthering our family unit. And so that just makes sense to me. I will go ahead and drive. And that's just a metaphor for, in general, like how you should approach your relationship, right? I do most of the cooking, not because of gender roles and that's what I should be doing, because one, I enjoy the cooking. Two,
it's better.
I didn't want to put you out there like that, but the outcome is better. Let's just be real, right? And again, that allows it feels like an act of service for him, because again, he is a grinder. He wakes up at 5 o'clock every single day. I've never asked him to do that. Matter of fact, sometimes I asked him to stay your butt in bed and get few more hours. But he is a natural grinder. So what can I do to foster that? Right. I'm make sure he's nourished, because he will run himself ragged and, skip meals and do what he needs to do because he's so committed to his dream. So how can I support that? I can make sure he's nourished. I can make sure he's, I'll give him a smoothie because I know that that's something quick he can drink that'll be nourishing for his body. It'll get him all these nutrients and things. It'll help him think better and perform his best. So yeah, just think about like what things in the relationship, again, outside of normalized like gender roles, just what things in your relationship can you do to serve the other person so that you as a unit can go towards whatever goal you want to go towards. So
that's good.
There.
That's good. I love it. Yes.
Snaps all around.
Yes. Do I have time for one more question?
Oh, hit us.
Yeah.
So what does, it's like two questions, but what does Black health, right, Sinclair, and then Black wealth mean to you, both individually and then collectively?
Ooh, greatness. So Black health is functionality to me, right? What are you able to do? How long? And the queen always does, like, how long can I play with my kids, my grandkids for comfortably, right? If my kids want to go swing, can I go to the playground and swing with them? My kids want to go
comfortably,
right?
Comfortably, right?
I feel blessed that, for Father's Day, when my dad asked for me and my little brother, he was like, I want y'all to come out and play basketball with me. I feel blessed that my dad at his age, and you ain't that old yet, Dad. I'm gonna be honest with you. You still pretty young, but the fact that you're still able to be out there and be fully functional on the basketball court, and we can still have that camaraderie, is, I think, a beautiful blessing. And I want to make sure that when I'm 50, when I'm 60, if I choose to, I can get on the basketball court, I can run, I can play catch and be functional. And then what does Black wealth mean to me? Black wealth means to me independence and agency of choice. I think a lot of times people take jobs and they do things for money because they have to, right? They have to feed their family. They want to provide. They want the house. Sometimes they work because they want the luxuries in life too, but they still feel like it's a need, where I want to be able to do what I want to do, right? Still earn money, still have a good life, still have that freedom, and not have to succumb to the clocking in every day, not having to ask my supervisor, hey, can I take this vacation to spend time with my family? Like, no, I'm bringing in income through our own business. If I want to take a month-long vacation with my queen and travel around the world, we're gone, right? So to me, wealth means that agency of choice and just freedom to be able to do what you truly want to do.
Ashe to all of that.
Yes.
I think the only thing I would add is, as the health nerd, I truly believe that like health in general, your wellness is at the foundation of everything else. If you don't have good health, your ability to do anything else you want to do is now limited, right? Because whether you are struggling with having the energy, or whether you just like, if you're dealing with constant pain, right? You're not going to be, the body is physically not able to multitask very well, right? Yes, you have like breathing that's going on while your blood is pumping, but usually your body's going to take energy away from vital things if it needs to heal, or if it needs to, if you're in the stressed state. I'm trying not to go too in the weeds, pull me out if I do. But when you're in that, like,
you see me get ready.
Right. Long story short, if you are not if your body is not allowing you to thrive,
Yeah.
then you need to reconsider what you're doing for your health. You need to make health a priority, because your body should allow you. Your body should be a vessel to help you do, basically accomplish your mission. Whatever you feel that you are on this planet to do, your body should be a vessel to help you do that. If it's not, if it's a hindrance at all, then in my opinion, you need to reconsider your priorities and make health and wellness a priority. It should be your a priority, if not the priority, so that anything else that you want to do, right? Wealth building, creating a nonprofit, you have the energy and the abundance to do that. So yeah, that's I think they go hand in hand. Black wealth and black health. But for me, black health is really at the foundation of everything else.
I like it. Oh, I love this.
And great questions. We appreciate those. Sometimes people keep it very surface level, and they'll be like, "Oh, when was your first date?" Or they'll just ask how long you've been together, and then they'll keep moving on. But we appreciate the deep dive and the deep questions.
Oh, I like the deep dive. Okay, one more, I promise. Do you guys feel like you're fulfilling your life's purpose? And if so, why?
Not yet. If fulfilling is a process,
right,
then yes, I think we are on the road to fulfilling our life's purpose. Because when we see the way that people engage with the board game, when they're sending their pictures, right, when they're sending their videos, that is just so fulfilling. When we see families sitting around the table, when we hear that a 9-year-old and 8-year-old would choose to buy a business instead of using a business, all that I think is a part of our purpose in changing the mindset of the community. And then this morning we hosted a Black Future Month workshop, which is a program that we've hosted for the past 4 years. Every June we get together experts, friends, professionals to talk about education, health, wealth, and relationships, and what that looks like in the future for the Black community. And my good brother Josiah got on before we went live. He was just pouring into my cup, just saying, like, we appreciate you, all the time that you do, the balancing that you're doing, hosting these sessions. And he has a podcast, he has a business, he does speeches, so he knows how much time and effort goes into it. So whenever he takes the 5 seconds, the 10 seconds to just stop, pause what's going on, and be like, "Hey bro, thank you. I like what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing. Anything you need, I got you." That also is a signal to me that I'm fulfilling my purpose, because other high quality people that I admire, that I see doing great things, are saying good things about me. Right. So I would say not done fulfilling, but definitely in the process of fulfilling my life's purpose and our life's purpose.
Yeah. And I would say if fulfilling my life's purpose is a marathon, I'm picking like my second step. I feel like
as in like go 1,
right,
2.
Yes, that's what I mean.
Okay.
I feel like I am so early on, but I'm still on the right path. Like I've started the race, but I feel like I'm so early on, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly what everything is going to look like. But I do feel like I'm on the right path for sure. Yeah. I'll just keep it there.
Oh yeah, and you can tell that Shakira is a podcast host because she asks great questions.
Right.
Podcasters, like any great podcast, you can tell by the questions and the caliber of questions that they ask you. So there should be a nice flowing conversation, right? And I love the question that you're asking, because it's making us think, but it's also like a comfortable conversation. So if y'all make sure y'all tap into make sure y'all tap into the Nonprofit Unplugged podcast. Support what Shakira is doing, her mission, her purpose, in helping more nonprofits secure the bag and grow and scale their company. But I know that in addition to your podcast, you have several products and services that people can tap into to also grow. But I want to zoom in, right? Because I want to overwhelm people. if folks are just starting their nonprofit, right? They're in the phase of either they just officially got their paperwork or they're thinking about doing it. What would be like the 1 or 2 key products that they should go to nonprofitunplugged.com and secure today? What would be that top product or the top 2 products?
I say go to, if you want the startup workbook, how to start, scale, and grow the nonprofit, right? Do all of the pre-work, the mission, the vision, and everything else you need to do before you get the ball rolling. Go to nonprofitunplugged.com/workbook, right? Do that first. Then jump over to nonprofitunplugged.com. And if we have a very comprehensive A to Z plus type of
Z plus,
right? Because everyone thinks getting the grant and getting it funding is the Z. And it's really, that's just the beginning. Right? A to Z is just one chunk. The Z plus is managing the funds, doing your program and evaluations, measures, and stuff like that, right? Like all of the management, sustainability things. So that way you're going for a long time. So anyway, go over to nonprofitunplugged.com. You can definitely look into our enterprise suite, where if you're like, I'm overwhelmed with doing all the paperwork stuff, we do it all for you. We do it all for you, right? On top of that, you also get a marketing plan, a strategic plan, a fund development plan. So at this point, we set you up with your fundraising, back office campaign, set you up with sponsorship letters, set you up with your first month of social media content, copyright things, everything that I do to get you. So you start your nonprofit and then let's get your first $5,000. That is the full enterprise suite. So go there, or, go ahead and select that. Or if you're really just interested more into, if you already got that stuff done, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, I just need more of show me the Carfax type of deal. You know what I mean? Like, let me just go straight to the, the gumbo, right? Let me just go straight there. And then that I do offer, me and other experienced grant writers I work with. So I'm not alone. We do grant strategy sessions. So we will sit down with you for our 15 minutes. We'll literally give you the entire outline, the entire framework of the grant, so that way you can actually win the grant, win that funding. Here's how you answer the questions. Here's what you should say. Here's what you should not say. Here's what you need to do in between time. Here's what you don't need to focus on in between time. Oh, and then make sure you have this in there. All of those tactile details that often gets missed. We help you to remind you, I should say, to get that stuff in order.
There it is. And I'm thinking, because we definitely want to start a nonprofit someday in the very near future. So we might go ahead and we're going to go to Nonprofit Unplugged, look at the workbook and just start going now. Or maybe not start the nonprofit now. Don't worry, Sinclair. I know
that was advice for other people.
Yes.
I know.
Okay. I just want to make sure you weren't getting stressed out by me saying that, Queen.
But when you need me, I'm here.
Yes, you got
when you're ready.
When you need me, call me. No matter where you are. No matter. All right. This is not an M4 concert, but we appreciate you for coming through. We're going to do some very quick updates. And then we want you to end us with some words of wisdom, some advice, words of encouragement that you have for folks that have their dream. They want to start their nonprofit, but they're just looking for that little bit of water, right? That little bit of sunlight to help their seed grow. Queen, updates on your side.
I'm going to keep it real quick. We got our 10-week financial literacy program, Leaders Innovating Tomorrow, where we work with middle schools and high schools and teach them how to solve a problem in their community with a business. So the deliverable there is a business pitch by the end of the program. And then they compete in a business pitch competition and it gets live. So if that sounds like something that you or your scholars would be interested, hit us up at info@playblackwallstreet.com and let's start talking about how we can support your scholars.
Shout out to the second year in a row world champions or LA region champions, Jefferson High School, CBM Construction won year 1, JAW just won, or JAW, Jewelry Advanced Wireless Technologies, 1 year 2, both from Jefferson High School. So congratulations to y'all. And yeah, Lit's been going great. It's been a huge blessing just to see the students identify a problem in their community and build a either nonprofit solution or a for-profit solution in solving that problem. Really, really good stuff. In alignment with that, we're also taking our full Play Black Wall Street team, who's continuing with us next year to Tulsa's Black Wall Street to specifically get engaged with the history of Tulsa, go inside the museums, get some good food, meet the unofficial mayor, Terry, of Black Wall Street, and then come back in the fall more focused, more trained, more ready to encourage the next wave of entrepreneurs. So the Lit program is only getting better. It's only getting greater. So definitely make sure y'all tap in. info@playblackwallstreet.com. Get on the wait list because unfortunately fall semester is full. Fall semester is already full. But if you're in the LA area, if you're in the Southern California area and you want to empower your students for the spring, let us know. We can do it. Now, let's go ahead and end with amazing words of wisdom. This has been a very rich, very wealthy, very legacy building, intentional podcast. I hope y'all are taking notes. Listen back to it 2 or 3 times if you have to.
Yes.
Share it with somebody that you know wants to start a nonprofit. Right? Share it with that friend, that uncle, that family member that's been talking about that nonprofit every family reunion, but they haven't done it yet. Go ahead and slide this episode into their text messages. But we love the hug. So cute. Words of wisdom, words of advice as we end the episode, Shakira, for our listeners.
Well, let me start with this. You're never too young to start the nonprofit. You're never too old to start the nonprofit. It's never too late to start the nonprofit. You do have support. A myth buster, right? Is everyone thinks that they're going into this by themselves. They're in the dark all the time, and they may have trust issues or whatever the case may be, because it may seem like a lot of work, right? But you are not alone, and you need to do it. It's like it's almost like acid reflux right now. Acid reflux of dreams. It has started at the pit and it's raising itself up and almost like you need to throw it up. Just throw it up. You'll feel better at the end, right? Like, do it. There's so much more. There's more people that still need to be helped, right? Than there are organizations helping them. If God is calling you to do that one thing, it may seem outrageous, but God already know the percentage of people who need it. So go be the solution for those people. Okay. And believe that you believe that it's going to work. If you do all these steps and you still come out like, I don't really know, or you have any room of doubt, it will not work. It won't work. So focus on building, putting yourself in position now, by doing everything I mentioned, planting those seeds, and God would catapult you further than you ever could have dreamed of.
Boom. There it is, y'all. Believe and just go do it. Thank y'all so much. Shakira, we appreciate your time. Tell Sophia we appreciate her time.
Yes.
And of course, listeners, we appreciate y'all for tapping into the M4 show, Melanated Married Millionaires in the making. I'm your host, Devon Travell, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game.
And I'm Sinclair, aka the Health Nerd.
Make sure y'all secure the marriage. Make sure y'all secure the sure And of course, make sure y'all secure the bag. Peace. Thank you for supporting the M4 show and our mission to increase the wealth of Black families.
If you received any value from this episode, any value at all, any, do us a favor and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, anything, all of them. All of them. Wherever you're listening, go ahead and like and subscribe.
And after you like and subscribe, make sure you send this episode to at least one family that you really want to see win. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.